Hello, I'm Morgan Pachma, and this is City and State TV. Today, our guest is Bronx Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr. Mr. Borough President, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So I've heard it said again and again that the Bronx is the next Brooklyn in terms of economic development. What do you think about that comparison, and do you think there's accuracy to that statement?
There is no accuracy to that. The Bronx is the next Bronx. In that we have been blessed and we've been fortunate to experience a really a huge boom in economic development, in housing stock, in crime reduction and job creation. This is something that we really feel proud of because we felt for so many years that we were the forgotten borough. For instance, over the last 4 years in my first term, we've seen about $700 million plus in housing, all kind of housing, affordable housing, mixed income, home ownership, co-ops, housing for veterans, housing for seniors, housing for grandparents who are the sole custodian of their kids. And it's all been done in a green, sustainable way. We're leading the city on that. We've seen billions of dollars in private investment, everything from the largest mall being built in Bay Plaza, the Macy's Mall. When it's all said and done, in that area, we'll have the largest concentration of retail space in the whole city, 1.2 million square feet. We have seen things like the Kingsbridge Armory that's finally going to be developed, the largest ice sportsplex in the country, 9 rinks. We have seen the Carrie Lee's Tennis Center, a $23 million public-private investment, the Donald Trump Golf Course, and even the potentiality of having a soccer stadium. We've seen tech startups in the Banknote Building boom in our Sunshine Studios, which are incubators. At the crime, we're leading the city in homicide and shootings and all major crime category reduction in terms of percentage. So people are starting to take notice, and we're proud of that. And as I call it, we are experiencing the new Bronx.
Do you feel you were criticized a great deal when you had shot down the mall that was going to be in the Kingsbridge Armory because you were holding out for a living wage for workers? Do you feel vindicated now that the ICE Center is coming in and they have really agreed to the terms that you had laid out from the beginning?
I wouldn't say vindication. Remember that those who were not pleased with the first outcome were not really Bronxites. And they were looking and they were criticizing and they were formulating their opinion from the outside. Bronxites all along were supportive. The city council members in the whole city of New York were supportive of what we were doing there. And it wasn't just about living wage. It was about how you do business, how you approach us. And it set a tone. And I would have to tell you that it set a positive tone because all of this development that I'm telling you about, that I speak of, are now developers who are building green. They want to pay living wages. They want to hire Bronxites. You know, it's different to say that you want to create jobs in the Bronx. There's another thing to say that you're going to create jobs for Bronxites. We want to do it in a way where we're planning with purpose so that you're not creating a adverse situation for surrounding businesses. The Kingsbridge Armory would have totally devastated Fordham Row, which is only 1 train station away. So, we're happy with the ICE Center. Bronxites are happy with it. We're going to create jobs, all of it living wage. We have the best community benefits agreement that the country has seen, a 26-page document. We have 50,000 square feet of community space so that the community can have access and to bring programs that have nothing to do with ICE. And again, that was the catalyst for how business is being done in the Bronx.
You mentioned a number of projects that are in the works or already completed. Do you have a vision for some other kind of mega projects that you would like to see go up in the Bronx?
Sure. You cannot speak of economic development without addressing our transportation infrastructure. So we have, just yesterday I met with the DOT commissioner of the new commissioner in the city. We've been in conversations with the state DOT on what to do with the Bruckner and the Sheridan, how we enhance and we beautify the Cross Bronx, which we know is an eyesore. But we were able—
a good runway.
A good runway, yeah. But we need to make it look aesthetically better so that people know when those that are riding through it, they see that something different, something new is happening in our borough. But one of the top priorities, if not the top priority of my administration this year, and we were happy to hear the governor agree with us during the State of State, are the 4 Metro North stations. We want them in this 5-year, the MTA capital plan, the 5-year MTA capital plan. We want to see it there. These 4 train stations, one would be in Hunts Point, the other one would be in Parkchester, one would be in Morris Park, and the other one would be in Co-op City. So could you imagine our Bronxites in the eastern corridor of the Bronx getting to and from the Bronx to Midtown in 25 minutes, maybe going to Hartford, going up north into Connecticut and looking for job opportunities. And many Bronxites work up there now, but they're in their cars an hour, hour and a half, getting up there in less than half an hour. Also, if you study the history of rail in this country and what it's done for the localities, imagine upzoning the surrounding areas of these stations, what we can invite there. In Morris Park right now, we have the Hutch Metro Center that would benefit. We have the 911 call center there. We have the first world-class hotel in the 125-bed residence Marriott there. So this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to rebrand the borough. We're trying to reimagine the borough. Transportation is the one focus that we're going to do it. We're speaking of ferry services. We see them now throughout the city of New York. We want to see them in the Bronx as well. And of course, we want to concentrate on our education system.
I mean, we oftentimes hear some, I don't know how I should put it, optimistic proposals in the State of the State address. I mean, what is the likelihood that those Metro North stations will come to fruition?
I think that the likelihood is I'm optimistic about it because when you hear these things actually being highlighted and coming out of the governor's mouth, when there's so many things that the governor can mention. And we tried to do that last year. I think that we have a strong delegation in the Bronx delegation in the Assembly. We have in-state Senator Jeff Klein, who's the co-leader of the Senate, where 3 out of the 4 stations will touch his district, championing this cause as well. In fact, he and I put out a report that said that home ownership, property values, home values will go up to the tune of $140,000 per home, that we would create over 5,400 jobs, that investment would go up about $1 billion plus. And then to have the governor agree with us and put his stamp of approval on it and pushing it, working with the senators in Long Island, is crucial as well. I think that I'm feeling strong, and you always cautiously optimistic, but I think in this 5-year capital plan, we'll get them funded.
Another project I know that's in the works is the Bronx Children's Museum. The Bronx is the only borough without a children's museum. What is the likelihood that that will come to fruition?
Well, we're the only borough where the Children's Museum doesn't have a home. So we have a children's museum. They operate a lot in schools, and they have a mobile unit. But we have a beautiful building on River Avenue in the Bronx that's owned by the Parks Department. I've put in about $3.5 million in capital funding, and they're ready to go. There were some crossing of the T's and dotting the I's that needed to happen between the Children's Museum and the Parks Department, and I believe that that's happened. And hopefully, while you see this whole renaissance and all of this development happening, particularly in that area of the Bronx, one of the amenities for the residents there, as well as everyone throughout the Bronx and people beyond our borders, will be a beautiful children's museum.
The Bronx is definitely, could be said that there's a tale of 2 boroughs in the Bronx. I mean, you have extraordinarily affluent areas like Riverdale, and then you have extremely poor areas. What are you doing to try to address income inequality in your borough?
Well, first of all, we want to steer away from the tale of the 2 Bronx. When I came into office, we said we were one Bronx, and we're bringing people together. And people are buying into the notion that what's good for the South Bronx is good for the North Bronx. What's bad for the East Bronx is bad for the West Bronx. And so there's a whole mindset now where everyone's starting to realize that we're all in this together. But obviously, when we speak of job creation, we want to do so with living wage. The living wage bill in the city of New York was introduced at my behest. So we want people to make more salaries, and that goes for developers who are looking for, a government subsidy or a charity of $1 million or more. So we want people to be able to afford to live in areas. We've the type of housing stock, making sure that individuals have the training and the job readiness and the job placement with all of the development that's happening is something that we're working with through the Bronx Overall Economic Development Corporation, the Bronx Chamber of Commerce, and other organizations such as SOBRO. So I think that we're getting there where everyone is starting to experience a benefit from the Bronx boom.
We've talked about the economics, we've talked about transportation, some infrastructure projects. And what are your other priorities for the coming year?
It has to be education, Morgan. Look, when we could build the housing so that we can retain professionals, we could build low-income housing, we could create jobs. But by and large, people make long-term decisions as to where they want to live based on whether or not they trust the educational system. Well, safety and education. Safety, I've already told you, we've been the safest since the borough, since 1963. We're leading the city in crime reduction. But people are going to make those decisions based on the education. So I look forward to working with Chancellor Farina and with Mayor de Blasio to address it. And basically, I tell them that you can make $1 out of 15 cents in the Bronx with education, the same way we did with crime. If you invest just a little bit, if you focus on the Bronx, we can increase those numbers, and they'll give you overall better numbers throughout the city.
Mr. Borough President, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.